Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub Podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 123 of the Declutter Hub Podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you have clutter and want to sort it out, this is the show for you. Now, in today's episode, Leslie and I are talking about sorting out socks. Leslie, honestly, when you suggested we do a podcast about socks, I thought you were joking. But then we started talking about it and we realized there's actually so much to tell and say about socks. So why are they such a problem?
Well, let me talk about the background to why I thought this was a great idea. So I woke up this morning feeling a bit frivolous. Now, normally with our podcast, we plan them months in advance, but this has been thrown into the mix, hasn't it? Very last minute. And I was like, we need to talk about socks, because I was just kind of sat there thinking, there's so much to talk about with socks. It seems so simple, but it isn't, is it? There's a lot of psychology involved in socks. There's a lot we can talk about in terms of organization of socks, decluttering, donating socks. I mean, we'll be lucky, honestly, to get it into 30 minutes, but we're going to try our hardest because we do like to talk, but I feel like we can nail it in 30 minutes, can't we, Ingrid?
You know what? When you suggested the topic of socks, my mind went back to one of my clients that actually had 4 bin bags full of random socks. And they were like everywhere. They were like hidden. They came from lots of different places. And she's like, socks is such a big problem. But we first had to sort out other areas before we could tackle her socks. But then at that moment, I think I really realized, yes, socks is a big problem.
It is. And I'm with you. And I bet there's loads of our listeners today thinking, oh, I've got loads and loads of socks. There's just something about socks, which means that people have this irrational holding on idea to socks, even odd socks, and keep tons and tons of them over the years, multiplied by the amount of family members. It's a lot of management of something as simple as socks, isn't it, Ingrid? So we're going to talk about decluttering, aren't we? We're going to talk about organisation, and we're going to talk about donation mainly.
Yeah.
So, age-old question, Ingrid, how many socks is enough?
I think that all depends on how often you do laundry.
Yes.
So I do a load of laundry just about every day. I do probably 2 dark loads per week. Most of my socks are dark colors, not whites. So most of them are dark, so twice a week. So I would say that I would probably need about, let's just say, about 14 pairs of socks. So I wear black socks every day, but just, I don't know why. I just like them. I found one that I really, really like. So I think anywhere between kind of 12 and 14 pairs. So by the time they go in the laundry, they go drying, they go in my folding, they go back in the cupboard. I think about, I would say 14 pairs of socks. Then I've got 1 or 2 pairs of kind of socks for when I go kind of walking and hiking, kind of for my kind of thicker socks, and maybe 2 or 3 pairs of sports socks for when I go to the gym or kind of exercising, not walking.
No, how often is that? When is that? I've been working with you solidly for the last 2.5 years, if not longer. I'm not going to lie, going to the gym is not something that I've ever once heard you talk about. I'm sorry, but your case in point. Why are you keeping gym socks when you've not ventured anywhere near a gym in the last 2 or 3 years?
In my defense, I did this dancing class for a while that I needed my socks
for 1 week.
No. I wasn't very good, but I did not do it 1 week. But don't call me out here on the podcast because everybody will know, Leslie, this is not good. Anyway, and I have a couple of ski socks, of course, because I go skiing we try every year, but we haven't been in 1 or 2 years, but so my ski socks are there, but they're in a different location in my house. So that's about it. So I think the same kind of goes for the kids. My daughter's got some long kind of knee highs for school, about 5 or 6 pairs. Then she's got some shorter kind of ankle, like these ankle socks that she loves, thicker quality, thicker material. And the same with my son. I think about 10 pairs of socks, black for school, and another pack of 5 or 6 for like the weekend. And the same with my husband, all black socks. So I don't have, I mean, if you add it up all together, it's a lot of socks, but I don't have hundreds and hundreds of socks, because I think that's where the problem lies. Socks get missing, they don't get paired, they don't get washed often enough, they disappear, and then people keep buying new socks over and over and over again. But actually, I think you just make the problem worse by having more socks. But that's my 2 pennies worth of it. I would love to know how you deal. So I don't have a sock problem, but I'm on it. So how does it work in your house then? How many socks have you got?
You know, when I asked that question, how many socks is enough? It was quite tongue in cheek, really, because like with anything, there's no right or wrong answer for anybody. It very much depends. Very good point about the laundry. And again, even within your laundry system that you mentioned, Ingrid, yours is different to mine because I use a dryer and you use a rack. And so even that in itself means there's another 24 hours in your laundry system and, you know, getting to the point of re-wearing or putting away, let's say, than there is mine, because I can kind of put it in the wash at 8 o'clock and it can be ready to wear again at 11, you know, with the washing and the drying. So even things like that are very relevant. You talk about realism and routines and knowing and timing yourself, knowing how. So it's all about knowing your own scenarios, what you typically do, what might go wrong. Does that make sense? If you're not on top of it every day and something runs away with you, it might be 2 or 3 days longer before you do. So what realistically is your laundry schedule? What realistically do you need in terms of socks? Do you go to the gym every 2 days like you, Ingrid, as you clearly said? Or, you know, because some people run every day and you're going to need more socks if that's the case. You know, some people need more stuff. They do sports every day. You know, you talk very validly about the ski socks. I'm with you. You know, if you go skiing every year for a week, say, or whenever, you kind of need 7 pairs of very voluminous, thick socks. And so where do you put those? You know, I put those separately with my rest of my ski wear, or do you put them in your drawer? You know, so there's so many different scenarios with something so simple as socks. You're keeping it simple in your house. I'm wearing black socks. Kids are wearing white socks. My husband's wearing black socks. Some people like the variety of different types of pairs of socks, depending on what shoes they're wearing. You know, so there is definitely no right or wrong way. But what we're going to say today is be realistic, look at the amounts you've got and keep it to a minimum. Because if you've got way too many pairs of socks, that's when it really starts getting out of control.
Absolutely. And I think the more people you have in your family, the easier it is to go out of control, especially, for example, if you've got kids who are all kind of the same size or the same, wear all the same black socks. I think mainly the biggest problem is black socks that get complete, like which sock goes with which sock. And because I use kind of different types of socks and they're all black, but Max has got different socks than my husband, than me. So I recognize the type. So it's very easy for me to do the sorting. But if you've got a whole family and you're not on top of your socks and you just see a whole mountain of black socks, it's like, oh my goodness gracious, where do I start here?
Tell you what are quite useful as well if you're trying to be really orderly and organized with your socks, particularly black socks, is the ones that have got colors on them, you know, kind of like yellow toes or yellow heels or red or green or whatever. And that makes it really easy. But the thing is that socks slip in. We get socks as gifts. We get socks in our Christmas stockings. You know, so all these different types of socks kind of slip in as well. So even if you want to be super organized, you can't always be like that. And then, of course, let's throw into the mix odd socks. And then here we go into a whole nother area of decluttering, don't we? See, like we're already 10 minutes into the podcast. Like, can we literally? We have got so much to talk about in terms of socks. Okay. Ingrid, so we recognize that we need to be realistic about socks. We know that we've got too many. How do we go about decluttering socks? What strategies have you used in the past?
I think that's a really good start. So I think first of all, you need to determine if the socks that are actually in your drawers or somewhere in your bedroom or wherever it is where they live, if they're all kind of can we conclude they're all matched right? Or are you like, I've got absolutely no idea. I just got some random socks that I put together. I don't know. If you, for example, know that all the socks that are in your drawers are the pairs that go together, leave them where they are for now and just focus on all the ones that are loose and random and maybe in a bin bag or a bag somewhere or a bag for life. Gather all those socks together, and then it is a matter of finding their friend, finding their partner, pairing them up. I would say start with first separately doing all the socks that have colors and patterns, because that's easier. So you need to kind of make two piles, kind of has a color in it, so it's easier to find its friend, to these are all black. I need to investigate much more deeper in detail and focus on what I'm doing here. So I would say start there, gather them all together, and actually then colors and black separately, and then start with the colors. So you can then actually see which sets are complete.
So I think that's really interesting, Ingrid, because a lot of people who you've jumped straight to the kind of matched socks. There is a step before that. There's a lot of people who struggle a lot with socks who've not even got to that point of matching socks or pairing socks, and they wouldn't do that. And so organizationally, they chuck everything in together and they pull socks out and try and match them up as they wear them. So are we saying that that's a good idea, a bad idea? What do you think?
I personally would say when socks come out of the laundry and are dry, I would match them and then put them away. I would not advocate having a gigantic box with socks unless all the people in your house have the same size and wear the same sock and have the same color. Then you can use here's a box, just take out two random socks. Listen, if you don't even care about socks, if you're like, I don't care, I don't even mind, I'm going to wear random socks. That's my life. That's my personality. I'm cool with that. Hey, this podcast is not for you because you're like, I'm fine. Life is all good. But a lot of us do want to wear matching socks. So I would probably say combine them together and then put them away and wear them.
I think you're right. I think it's very basic. The problem you've got, I mean, when my kids went through their teenage years, it was kind of in vogue to wear non-matching socks. And I'm like, really? Are we really doing this? And so then everything goes in mismatched into the wash, doesn't it? And then they come out, and I'm sure a lot of the parents here are like, yes, my kids do that as well, which is like super annoying. And even if you've got a good system going, it kind of messes with you. But anyway, so there's other people that don't help. But I agree. I think that pairing socks at the point of when they come out of the wash is a really good idea. Do we think then that pairing socks before we put them into the wash is a good idea, Ingrid?
Interesting question, because you can buy like all these little gadgets where you can clip socks together before you throw them in the wash, or you can put them in some sort of wash bag and then put them in. It sounds like a really good idea. When you've got lots of socks and they're everywhere, you think, I'm going to buy these clips and I'm going to clip them together and then put them in a wash. And I'm thinking to myself, is this really going to happen? Is this not something for like super organized people to buy something like this? And do I see my son, who's like 14, clip his socks together before they go in the wash? I don't think that's going to happen, Leslie. I'm being realistic here. I rather think to myself, you know what, on a Saturday morning, when I spend half an hour of folding all my laundry that's been dried during the week, I'm just going to sit there for 10 minutes and pair the socks from those 5 loads of laundry that I've done this week, and that's it. I don't think I can expect my family members to use clips. But if there's only 2 of you, and if you're super structured, maybe the clip thing works brilliantly. But in my head, I'm not sure about this whole clip situation.
I completely agree with you. That's what we would call microorganizing a little bit. And so a lot of those systems that sound like brilliant ideas involve a very organized person to maintain or to implement that system. With my kids, talking about kids, will they clip their socks together? No, they're still at the stage where they're taking their boxer shorts or pants with their knickers still attached and probably a pair of socks kind of attached at the bottom to them. So I'm getting all of the things combined because they can't even be bothered to separate them out. Or I'm getting my husband who's obsessed with it and he's kind of putting his socks together in the wash, and then I've got to unball them, if you will, before they go into the wash anyway, because you don't want to put them through together, do you? I told you there was a lot to talk about with socks, didn't I? But I don't think, for me, the sock clip system going into the laundry wouldn't work, because I think that for many of our listeners who are more on the kind of disorganized and organized scale would struggle to maintain that system.
Let's go back to the decluttering. We've categorized them into socks with colors and socks with no colors at all. How would you then do it, Leslie? Would you pair them up, and then while you're looking at them and you're finding the pairs, I would inspect them at that moment, look at the socks and go, what is the condition of these socks? So if I see, when I'm doing my laundry, in this case, on a Saturday morning, and I'm pairing them up, I look at them, and if I see a sock with a hole, it immediately goes to the side. When I see a sock where the kind of ball of the foot, the fabric has gone thin, it goes out. So they don't even go back in the drawers in the bedroom. I filter them out as I see them. And because I've got all the same kind of socks, my husband's has got the same kind of socks, my son has got the same kind of socks. If one has a hole, it doesn't matter, because at some point there will be another sock that has a hole, and then I can make a pair again. So for me, it kind of works that way. But would you do the same, or how would you do a decluttering of socks then?
Yeah, exactly. So I would declutter at the point of laundry, because that's when you really look at your socks, either when you're putting them on or when you're doing your laundry. So if I see a hole, if I see a threadbare sock, it goes straight away into my donation station, which is in my laundry room. Now, I'm very lucky, as we've talked about before, I have a specific laundry room, and I have a space where I have my donation station in there. So that goes straight into my donation station when I see the hole. But I don't have quite the same as you, where we've got all the same socks. So that is where I typically get my odd sock scenario from, because I throw the one away with a hole, and then what happens is that I'll have the other one, its little partner, that will be an odd sock, and then I'll leave it for a little while. We're going to talk about that in a minute, aren't we, in terms of odd socks, what we're going to do with them. Yeah. But yeah, I certainly think that is the time to tackle holey or threadbare socks when they come out of the laundry.
So when you declutter socks with clients, how do you do that? Do you take them all out, or do you do it person by person, or do you just look at the odd sock mountain, or what happens there? How would you tackle it?
I think that's a really interesting question, Ingrid, and I think it very much depends on the client and the magnitude of the problem. And I, as you have come across huge sock problems in some clients' houses who tend to be quite cluttered. And so we used it, as professional organisers, we use different strategies with different clients depending on what is suitable. But I have used the strategy many times with socks where I tell them to gather every single sock from every single location in the house that exists. I pile them all together on a bed or on a floor so that the client can see how big of a problem that is, and how, to be honest with you, ridiculous the amount of socks is, and that it needs to be tackled. And then we've gone through the process of saying, how many is a reasonable amount of socks for you in your scenario per person? Let's think about hiking socks and skiing socks and sports socks and dressy socks and black socks and ankle socks and trainer socks and all of those things that we need to take into consideration. What is cumulatively, collectively then, a sensible amount? And then we've started doing the pairing, which, I have done a whole 5-hour session with one client just on socks. That's how big of a problem it can be. And this is something that needs to be tackled, isn't it? So I definitely if you've got a big problem, you need to confront yourself with the amounts that you've got. So I've definitely used that strategy, or I might go drawer by drawer. It just depends, but don't be scared of confronting yourself with your volumes.
You know what? It was very funny, Leslie. when we were talking about sorting out socks, it felt like it's like an SOS. It's a cry for help, isn't it? It's like, SOS, help me with my socks. And then I was thinking, we are using this acronym as well in the Declutter Hub because we've got sort out sentimental, haven't we? It's also an SOS, and it just gave me a bit of a giggle. So in case you're thinking, what is sorting out sentimental? That is our sentimental course, isn't it, Leslie?
Once we worked that out, our SOS acronym, we quite liked it, didn't we? So I feel like we're just going to genuinely look for anything that needs decluttering that begins with S so that we can continue to use it. But for now, we have Sorting Out Socks as our podcast, and we have Sorting Out Sentimental, which is our sentimental course. So our sentimental course is quite new. It is designed specifically for those amongst you who feel that, most of your house is kind of in control. You don't have a huge problem and you're just chipping away at it, listening to our podcasts, and it gives you enough to go ahead and tackle smaller areas and keep control. But you have a real stumbling block when it comes to sentimental items because you just can't find a way to work through those emotions with your sentimental stuff. And this is a lot of people out there that just are fine generally, but sentimental stuff is just a complete different ballgame. So for you, we have devised our sentimental course. It's available in our membership to all our members, but it's also available as a standalone course. So go check it out. It's got 16 categories of sentimental items. It's got videos from Ingrid and I. We work through all those emotions, and it's all designed to get you to a point of enjoying your sentimental items because you've got the right volumes of them and you can use them in an appropriate way. So check it out, Sorting Out Sentimental course. You'll find it in our Learn With Us section on declutterhub.com. Or you can just send Ingrid and I an email to support@declutterhub.com and we'll tell you everything that you need to know.
So brilliant. So sorting out socks. Do you think kids could help when you're decluttering socks? So if you're like
yes, and more yes. What is the perfect project for kids? And it teaches them volumes, it teaches them decluttering, it teaches them organization, and it's a simple project that can while away many hours. Definitely get your kids involved from a very young age, I would say.
And it's exactly what you're saying. You can do counting, especially when they're very little. You can do it together. You can do counting. You can do colors. What's this color? What's that color? You can look at how big daddy's feet are or how small your feet are. Look at your socks. It is really good job to get them involved, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely get the kids involved. One of the clients that I work for has got 6 children. And so she did have a sock issue. I would say, with 6 children, you're going to have a lot of socks anyway. But that was quite the sock mountain that we got her family involved in sorting out. But they found it a lot of fun.
Because we were thinking about larger families, weren't we? What you could do is just give every person their own color. That is an option. You don't have to. I think you either have to go, we're all wearing black, we just have them in different sizes, or let's assign a different color of sock to each person, or just go, you've got white, you've got gray, you've got black, you've got red, just to kind of keep control of that system. So that could also be an option, couldn't it?
It could be an option, but the problem that we normally find with that kind of thing is that involves going back to first principles and starting from scratch. And not a lot of people want to discard all of what's gone before and start from scratch because that feels then wasteful, doesn't it? But if you can gradually build up to that, that's possible as well. It's really hard. Honestly, it's a really hard thing to get right, isn't it? Because it involves so much organization to get this system right.
Yeah. It's all these steps in laundry as well, isn't it? I mean, laundry is already so many steps, and socks are a part of that. And because it's small, they kind of seem to disappear, and nobody knows where they are. And it's like, how did I end up with a whole random sock mountain? How is this possible? Where did these guys disappear to? It's so strange. So
the reason is, Ingrid, is because we don't behave with our socks the same as we do with the rest of our clothes. We're not going to strip off in the lounge in an evening, but we might take our socks off if we're curling up on the sofa. So the place that we take our socks off, it could be anywhere. It can be if you're sitting at your office desk. It could be if you're sitting on the sofa, if you can get being, there's loads of places. And so lots of random places. And there's a lot of socks. Even if you just wear one pair of socks a day, that's 14 socks per person per week. That's a lot of items to deal with.
Yeah, good point. So let's talk a little bit more then about kind of organization. So where do you keep your socks? Do you have like one of my clients in her hallway, she's got a lot of shoes. She's got some sort of big cupboard with shoes, and she's got drawers where a lot of the socks live. Now, I don't have room in my house to have that, so I actually have a bedside table with 2 drawers, and one of the drawers is my sock drawer. So how does that work in your house then? Where do you guys keep all their socks?
Yeah, so we definitely try and have socks in their own drawer. I've got quite a wide drawer, so I have socks at one side and I have tights and at the other side. So I do have both together. I try and keep my socks to a minimum and try and keep the kids' socks to a minimum as well. But I think the organisation in terms of the socks for me has changed over the years. So as you guys all know, my kids are kind of grown up. Some they're coming and going. I've got 2 sons, a daughter, a husband, some more boys and girls, if that makes sense. But what I realized, as the kids were growing up and as Nathan was little, Nathan was 7 and Luke was 14, it was very easy for me to see Nathan's socks as opposed to Luke's socks, if that makes sense. And also the style of Luke's socks at 14 would be different to the style of Steve's socks as an adult. But as the kids have grown up and Nathan is now 18, Luke's 25 and Steve's a grown man, then they're kind of wearing the same kind of socks. And so now what I do when I take stuff out of the laundry, I have this kind of cubby system where I take the stuff out of the dryer or out of the laundry when it's dry, and I put it all in their own drawer, and then they take it back to their rooms. What I do is I put all of the socks together of the boys then, and they need to grab their own socks because I don't know whose socks is who. Why would I need to know whose socks belong to who? Life's too short for that. You're all grown people. Sort your own socks out. I'll pair them up. I'll put them all together. And when you come and get the rest of your laundry, you pull out of that top drawer your socks. Because otherwise it's like, they're not my socks, Mum. They're not mine. They're Luke's. Like, I'm not like some kind of mind reader who knows everybody's sock, even though you think that I should. I've not got a handle on 70 pairs of socks and who they belong to,
Yeah, true. And it makes me think, because what you're saying, you've got wide drawers, you've got your tights there as well. I have small drawers. So I've got one drawer for my socks, and I've got another drawer where I keep my tights and those 3 pairs of sporty socks that I never use, as you now have told everybody on the podcast. And my ski socks are with my ski gear, so they're completely separate. The kids just have a basket, or I think even one of them has a shoebox or something, or a basket where their socks are in their wardrobes, because they don't have really drawers. So it's just a basket in their wardrobe, and that works really well as well. So you need to think about it. Where do you want to put your socks on? What makes sense? I like to have my socks ready as soon as I get dressed in the morning. I want to grab underwear. I want to grab socks. I want to have everything together. I don't want to walk downstairs to grab a pair of socks. That's not in my routine. But you need to think about what works for you. Now, next question then, Leslie, the $1 million question: rolling or folding?
As you know, I'm not actually that meticulous of a person. We all know this, don't we? So I'm not really, I like to do things that are easy. I ball them up in a very random way. I'm better when I go to a client who is meticulous. Obviously, I have to be nice, so I probably do better work at my clients than I do at my house, where I just roll them into a bowl and chuck them in a thing and it's fine. But when I'm with a client, I fold nicely if that's what the client does. And I think I am perfectly able and capable of folding or rolling sock in a very nice, orderly way. But I don't choose to do that for myself because it's just not what makes me tick at home. And so I am a baller. I would call myself a baller.
Yeah.
If that's a thing. You know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. I do the same. I'm like, I think it's just because my mom did it that way. And I just roll, from the toes, roll up, go, move them over, and then it's a ball, and it just, boom, in the drawer, done. And I sometimes, the ones that are in the back, I move forward a bit, and I chuck the ones who've just come out of the laundry in the back. So you get a little bit of a first in, first out system, but I'm definitely not meticulous about it. with one of my other clients, she had a wide drawer. She wanted to have one of those kind of things that you can put in a drawer that you get all these little holes. And she wanted to have a pair of socks in each hole because she liked it that way. And it was brilliant. And we put tights in as well. And she had a really nice wide drawer. So it was perfectly to do it that way. And she wanted to do that. But that doesn't work for me either. Interesting.
I think it always makes me laugh when people talk about, rolling socks. It reminds me of when Marie Kondo wrote her book and had her TV program out a couple of years ago. And it was all about, you've got to be really kind to your socks almost because they've got feelings. You see, that's the kind of thing I'm like, no, that's just not, no. The sock doesn't have a feeling. Thanking your socks for their use during the day. That kind of thing just doesn't work for me. But I can understand, I understand that works for some people, and some people want to really protect. And some people might have beautiful cashmere socks that cost 20 or 30 pounds. I'm at Sainsbury's for 99p. Do you know what I mean? So my socks are fine and they last as long as they last, and then they're out. And so it just depends on what makes you tick.
True. Very good point. I mean, if you've got really expensive socks, you probably wash them separately on hand wash, or they might have wool in them. You might want to really fold them over gently and take really good care of them. I tell you, if I would have a pair of socks that was 30 pounds, I would take care of them too. I'm like you. I just get my socks at the local supermarket or at Primark or something, and fine, they last as long as they last. I found an exactly type that I really, really like, and they last for ages. And then at one point I think, oh, I need to get me some new ones. And then the old ones go that have holes and are thin, and then I get a new set. It just depends on what you want. So let me then ask you a next question, because we talked about socks and holes and like donating. Can you actually, I mean, I know the answer to this question, but I'm asking it to you. Can you actually donate socks?
Yes, you can. So of course you can. And you can donate socks with holes. And so this may be different depending on the charity shop, op shop, thrift shop, and all of the other types of donation shops that there are right across the world that you know the name of. But here in the UK, under normal circumstances, in normal times, our charity shops, most of them will accept things with holes, broken zips, all of those things, because what they do is they send them for something called ragging, and they get money for them as a kind of material volume, don't they? Mm-hmm. So they're quite happy to have socks with holes in. A lot of charity shops are not worried if you chuck that in with the general stuff that you're sending. If you're being super kind and you have a bag that you know is rags, sometimes you can separate that out and just label it and tell them that it's all rags, and so they don't have to sort through it. But yeah, I've always sent holy socks to charity shops, no problem. And I've never had anybody come back to me. And obviously I have a good relationship with the charity shops. So they're not like, Leslie, what are you doing sending us socks with holes,
Yeah, I think the thing is really just, please don't throw them in the bin. It's really not necessary. Here in the UK, definitely donate them if you can. Now, to wrap up this sorting out socks episode, it's like a tongue twister as well, isn't it? What do you do with like these random socks then, Leslie? So you've paired them up, but there's always some that lose their buddy, that lose their friend somewhere, somehow it gets lost. What how, when? Tell me.
Well, I'm quite lucky because I've got a sorting area in my laundry room. So I will take things out, as I said, for some bizarre reason that no one will ever know. There are always odd socks around, even though I've got quite tight controls on things. I give it about 2 weeks of them sitting in the odd sock pile, and then they go into my donation station if they've not found their partner. Because I know my laundry is in control. I know there's not dirty laundry tucked under sofas, or I still have no idea where the odd socks are. No idea. That will always remain a mystery. But I know that I'm not going to leave them there forever.
No.
So they go in the donation station.
Yeah. At some point, I think you just have to kind of go, right, we need to start a fresh year. I can't, even if there's loads of black socks, but they're all different. At some point you have to go, I'm just going to give this up. Unless you're like, I'm just going to pair them because I don't care that my black socks don't match. But at some point they have got to go because they just build up and build up. Now, shall I tell you one sock trick, Leslie, before we close this podcast? This might be something that nobody knows. Maybe there are people who know this.
I would love to know your little trick, Ingrid?
Now, it's
Tell
funny
us.
because I'm going to demonstrate this to you, and the listeners are going to have to just listen very carefully. Now,
You know what? I've got an idea.
tell me.
Ingrid's Insights, which we send out every week on our mailing list. You will do a demo this week of this. You're going to tell us about it now on the podcast. Watch this space. If you're subscribed to our mailing list, and if you're not subscribed to our mailing list, why not? Because it's amazing. Every week you get Ingrid's Insights. You get to know all about our challenges and our podcasts and everything like that. Let's do that, Ingrid, because this needs to be visual. But I would like you to explain it to me as well.
Okay, well, perfect. So a lot of people say, but especially when there's kids in different ages, right? Less of a problem with adults, but this is mainly a very good trick for when you have kids. How do I know if my kids' socks fit without them having to try them on? And I'm going to teach you what my mother taught me. And I had never even thought about it until somebody said this to me and said, I don't even know if the socks fit. And I went, aha, I have the perfect thing. So if you've got a kid that you think, I want to see if their socks fit, let them stand in front of you and hold out their hand. They're going to make a fist of their hand. And what you do, you wrap the sock from heel to toe around the knuckles of the hand. And if the toe and the heel touch each other, the sock fits. If there's like a gaping hole between the toe and the heel around the wrist, you know the sock is too small. Or if they overlap like enormously, you know the sock is far too big and it has to be from another kid in your house.
Amazing trick. I feel like you might need to, patent that and sell it as a thing. Sure, you can make some money out of that trick, Ingrid.
I don't know. My mother used to do that, and I just thought it was a ridiculous thing when I was young until somebody said, but I don't know. And I went, just use your hand, your fist. And she went, huh? What? And I'm like, here, let me demo. And she's like, I can't even believe it. And it's just so helpful. I think that's a great idea. I am going to make a video about this. It's going to be the shortest video ever, but it doesn't matter because I think it is super helpful if you're struggling with sizes. Oh my goodness, Leslie! I think we're now finished talking about socks, aren't we?
I mean, there's loads more things I could say, but I feel that I'm going to stop now.
Yeah,
enough of the sorting out socks episode.
Yeah, I know. I think it's true. I think we can actually talk another half an hour about socks. So, anyway, that's it for this episode, listeners. We hope you've all enjoyed listening and are inspired to do a sock declutter when you come home. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. Now, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with others. Maybe your friends and family would like to know our sock trick too. Or you think, I have a cool thing that I want to share with you. So on the show notes page on our website, you can find all the sharing buttons. And if you'd like to get more handy tips and advice from Leslie and I, you can find us in Facebook on the Facebook page, the Declutter Hub, or in our Facebook group, the Declutter Hub Community. And we'd love to see you there. And you can also find us on Instagram as @Declutter Hub. If you'd like to know more about our sorting out sentimental, please go to declutterhub.com and check out Learn with Us, and you will see all the details there. If you don't want to miss our next podcast, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast, and it will come into your notifications each Friday. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration and don't forget to tune in next week.